There's the red light. The red light that says, hey, man, it's time to huddle around your students and to get them all gathered in and talk some science. Use the word huddle because it's Saturday. The football season is, it's been going a little bit, but now we got everybody involved and got some great games today. Man, got a great schedule going on today. Get this part done and got some mowing time today with the rain and everything and slow down of the grass. Man, I had to mow and I think it's almost been a month now. But we get to today. It's actually more for leaves than anything else, and which is another great segue into today's topic. Chapter 30, our next to last. Man, that's awesome. This is our next to last chapter, and we're winding this up really big. Let's see. You watched the evolution this week. Oh, it's Halloween too. Oh, I didn't think about having like a Halloween picture or anything up like that. Man, do that. But it's been so long since I've been involved in Halloween that I've almost forgotten what it's like. I mean, my kids haven't wanted to dress up since middle school came along, and man, so we're talking graduating 11, 7, so 2005, 2006. Leah would have been a little bit still, but she'd have been done by 8 or 9. So man, it's been 15 years since I've been around something like that. So other than just schools doing a little bit, but schools haven't done nothing like that in a long time, at least at the high school level. But anyway, hey, welcome. Thank you for tuning this in. I begin to say, and I got sidetracked by it being Halloween, that plants are next to last. So you're going to be watching the evolution this weekend, and then you'll watch evolution or this one on. Let's see, that's today. So you watch evolution this week, and then you'll watch the plants next weekend, and let's scroll down into November. So this is the evolution week. This is when we're talking about evolution right there. And so we'll talk plants here, and then we'll talk animals here, and then a break. And then I think I got it set up to where we just do a review for the test, and this will be our final. So yeah, 3 chapters and then a week of just preparation and giving you a chance to really digest the material and try to have a successful last week as we can. We'll probably do like a practice test that night just to show you that, hey, what you know, what you don't know about the 3, and you kind of go from there. And then our final right here, and then we're done. So I mean, it's still 5 weeks away, but man, it's gonna zoom by. So we got 3 chapters, review week, and then finals, and of course Thanksgiving in there as well, which is gonna be a great time, man. I mean, you guys know me. I know enough. I do enough food stuff anyway that when you throw a holiday in that's gathered around food or functioned around food, oh man, look out. Look out. We'll cook a couple of different turkeys, man. We'll smoke one. We'll cook one, a smaller one, 2 small ones actually. We don't do a large one anymore. A couple of small ones, smoke one, cook one, and I'm trying to talk my wife into getting a rotisserie oven, for full birds like that, chickens and different ones. But she's drawing a pretty hard line so far. She thinks I got enough cooking toys laying around, but well, let's see. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I'll get one for Christmas, whether I buy it myself or not. I don't know. We'll see. Check back in January and see if I got me a rotisserie oven. Man, that'd be awesome to come home, cook a full chicken, a little garlic butter or something like that. Ooh, man, that's awesome. But yeah, big day planned: football, yard work, school work, cooking some steaks on the grill tonight. No, I love doing that. Of course, you guys know that. I like to do it on Fridays, but we did something different last night, and so just sitting outside, uh, enjoying the outside, just kind of relaxing, smelling that grill, listening to that sizzle. Of course, they're not on very long. We like them. We like them red. So 4 minutes per side at 450, and they are ready to go. So hey, let's get going. Hey, plants. But again, thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your educational journey. Man, you know me. I love talking some science. And you know what I like, you know how much I love photosynthesis. And so now we're talking about plants, and I mean, just in awe of what they can do. And you guys know how much I just marvel at the science concepts that we talk about, and just how great they are. So let's get into it. And let's get going. Now, just like the evolution, this is probably just going to be a one video. Matter of fact, it is just going to be one, and we'll just, whatever the length is the length is. Not enough to make it two good ones. So we will get started as always. Got myself a little water here. Yeah, although it is lunchtime, I kind of got a late start today. Did some other stuff this morning, but here we are. Got the water. Got my notes. So we are ready to go. That's right. There's a strong teacher movement, a little dramatic pause there to kind of get your interest built up. What's he going to say? What's he going to say? That's how we do it. All right, here we go. Background information. Get a little text box here. Move it way up here. Don't want to cover up the image there because I know that's why you're here. No, it's not. No. Probably got the post-it note over that corner as you do each and every time, and I can't blame you for that. Background information. Okay, so you know the word photosynthesis is going to come up eventually, and it is coming up real fast because it's just such an amazing topic to talk about, and we spend a great amount of time on that topic just a few weeks ago. Matter of fact, you just had your test last week with that, and hopefully that went well for you. But we're talking plants, we're talking structure, and the beauty of this chapter is we get to tie a lot of things in from the past. We're going to talk organelles, we're going to talk photosynthesis, and actually aspects of this lecture will kind of seem like a little A&P talk. I mean, we're going to talk structure and function. So, man, you're going to kind of get the full spectrum of what we're talking about. But with plants, if we're talking structure, okay, we're talking above ground. And of course, that would be stems. Let's do this. And leaves, and of course we'll talk about each of those individually in their little sections. But and when we talk leaves, we're going to mention photosynthesis. But hey, it's about stems too. I mean, if you're a blade of grass, well, that's not a great example because that's one long leaf. But if you're just like a house plant, even your stems and your petioles, I mean, they're all green. So that kind of tells you what's going on there. And then if we're below ground, of course we're talking roots. And one of my favorite questions to ask, especially at the high school level when we have a lot of time to spend on these topics, is, for the most part, why aren't roots green like the rest of the plant? And I just sit back and let them mull that over. And eventually somebody figures out or thinks about, well, they're below ground. Okay, so they can't photosynthesize. So therefore they must not have as much chloroplast going on as that. And plus the sunlight can't get to them to reflect that green back up to us. So there you go. A little fun we like to have at the high school level. So that's structure. Now let's talk cells. And I love talking about cells and just all the amazing things that they can do. But some of the cool features that plant cells have: cell wall. I mean, they don't get much cooler than that. Much more important in that, the idea of that strong structure. And I did it a bunch when we did organelle. When we think cell walls, I mean, you want to think almost like vertebrae. You know, our vertebrae that runs along our back that gives us that ability to stand up, just like a long bone, the legs do as well. But when I get that cell wall, and let me throw my second one on there, the vacuoles, when I get those two working in combination, okay, when the vacuole is full of water, it's the water storage unit. They have, plant cells, remember, have one central vacuole. It's a pretty big water tank, just like any city would have along the skyline where the water goes into for the city. But when that vacuole is full of water, if you think of a balloon, a water balloon, and it's full of water, I mean, it's stretching out, and it's kind of hard, okay, from the pressure. And when that's pressing against the cell walls, okay, that acts as a vertebrae. I mean, those cells are stacked on top of each other, almost like a spine. That's allowed plants to stand upright. And of course, it's also why when they start to lose water a little bit, they start to wilt a little bit, that vacuole pressure lessens and the plant just kind of starts to lean over. But as soon as you water it, give it some time, and it's right back up. Doing a hand visual, that's also a strong teacher move right there. Give you that visual. And of course, the chloroplast. I mean, how long could we sit here and talk about the chloroplast? We could talk about this little timer right here. And we got to go green today. Oh, I must have erased something for you before I got you on board. That little timer right there would certainly be close to an hour. We could talk about chloroplast for a long time if we wanted to. But we've already done that. So, as part of photosynthesis and everything about it, I mean, it's just an amazing thing. And of course, let's erase that. I'll need that spot eventually, possibly. And then back up here, a little edit. Oh, excuse me. And of course, photosynthesis. The idea of taking that water in, that carbon dioxide in, and taking those C's, taking those H's, taking those O's, and put them in the pile, and then making some glucose. I mean, an amazing topic, but we've already dwelled in that as well. Another cool aspect of this video is you're going to get to see where this gas exchange happens, where the oxygen comes in, is released, and the CO2 comes in, and the water comes in. You're going to get to see that area as we talk about that, the stoma. So that's the idea of the background information. So let's close this out. Let's get that glorious green pen going. And I picked it. But here, let me do this first. Let me bring this over just a little bit here. No, I don't need to do it that much. There we go. Now green pen time. Alright, so obviously to start off the bat, we've got the root system and the shoot system, just to basically dividing the plant into two parts. Above ground, below ground. If we extend that ground right there, that's below, that's above ground. Okay. One of the things we're also going to try to do is, as we go through here, just kind of point out. I always try to kind of reference it, but maybe a little more directed reference to potential test questions, multiple choice questions. So as we go around this diagram, and we're talking reproductive. Okay, when we do that, and we'll come over here, and I'm just going to put an R. Okay, reproductive. So we're talking male and female parts. Talking male and female parts. Now, some plants have both. Okay, some plants just have one. Pecan trees would be an example of that. To get pecans, you've got to have a male and a female tree in somewhat the same area in order to get that good pollination. Okay, so reproductive, and of course that's where the fruits are made. I mean, it's the same process as humans, just obviously in a little different format. But you get the pollen or the sperm from the males, and that gets dusted onto through pollination onto the female ovaries. And once that happens, just like with humans, I mean, the pollen acts as the pollen is the sperm, and the ovary is the egg. Once that happens, you get fertilization going on, and then whatever the seed and fruit are, I mean, it begins to develop right out of the plant. You know, you get that flower, and develop that fruit. You got your vegetative part. That's the photosynthesis section, the leaf blades and things like that. So that's the basic diagram of a plant. And then as we go in here to the bottom, a lot of the same things. You get your roots, your stems, your leaves, your flowers, your fruit. And we just highlighted this information here. This is kind of before and after. When you get your flower, okay, and then from that the flower petals fall away, and you've got your fruit, whatever it might be, whether it's an apple, cherries, green beans, corn on the cob, whatever it might be there. And all right, so let me close this so we can move over here. And for the most part, we're going to be moving to the right here each time. So let's slide all these over right in there. Okay, diagram 3. One of the things that we're going to heavily be talking about is the 3 types of tissue, and these are super important to know. We haven't, this is where the kind of test question stuff will begin, and it's the idea of those kinds of tissues, especially understanding dermal, ground, and their different functions. And then we'll also talk about the different types of cells that are involved in each, and the functions and stuff. But it's the idea of dermal tissue. Now when you think dermal tissue, you want to think skin. Okay, so when I reference dermal tissue to skin, that tells you right away where it's at. It's on that outer edge of the plant, and it kind of gives you some of the function, protection, that kind of good stuff. Ground tissue. Let's do vascular tissue first. So vascular tissue, you want to think about that bone. Okay, when you think about bones, they're these long central tubes, kind of, you know, things right in the middle of like your arm or your leg, and you got muscle around it. And the muscle is going to be the ground tissue. So if you think about your leg, okay, or your arm, okay, you've got your skin, that's the dermal tissue, and then you've got your bone in there in the middle, that's the vascular tissue, and then the muscle all around it in between the skin and the bone, that's the ground tissue. And again, they each have their own functions. Vascular tissue is pretty cool, dermal tissue is pretty cool, ground tissue pretty cool. But we'll talk about all of those in time. But I wanted you to kind of get a metaphorical reference to those as far as the structure. And then when we look at these pictures here, this obviously is a root, and this is part of the stem cross section, and then these is the leaf cross section. The idea of the vascular bundle right in the middle. Okay, and that's this kind of the center area here, and then this is a dicot. They're in a ring, and of course here in the leaf, again in the center of that's your vascular bundle. The orange, okay, that's your ground, and of course the green is the dermal. So you got your dermal, and then your ground, and then your vascular, and kind of the net setup. And again, we'll talk functions when we get to each of those parts. And as far as dermal. We're there right now. Let's move this up. And get our, no, we need to type here. We'll type here so it's pretty legible. Move this up. So we're talking dermal tissue. Okay. So we've already established where dermal tissue is. It's that outer edge. We're thinking skin as our kind of our metaphorical reference point to our own bodies. And all right, the first thing we want to talk about is cuticle. I'm sure you've held enough leaves in your day and worked with enough plants to recognize that that's that waxy covering. That's wavy. What do I want? I want X, yeah. Not wavy covering. It's that waxy covering. It's about protection. Okay, we'll stop there and talk about that. If you can imagine, if you're an insect, okay, you want to eat the leaf. You know, you're a June bug or you're a grasshopper, okay. But if you had to eat to get to the leaf, you had to chew through a bunch of, we'll say, like Vaseline or something like that. That would be less desirable for you to do that, and it'd just be easier to go find a plant that didn't have that waxy covering. So it does protect from that, but it also helps with water loss. So it's kind of got that plastic on it, if you can think of it as that way, and that prevents the water from leaving through a whole bunch of areas, and we'll get to that. Excuse me, when we talk about the stoma here, but it helps with water loss. And yeah, if you think about that waxy covering, I mean, if you want to get a candy bar, a vending machine, the store, whatever. But if there was no way to remove the paper covering, and you had to chew through that first to get to the candy bar, it might be less desirable to do so. Or if it had a plastic coating, like just some plastic thing, and you had to chew through that first to get to the chocolate, it may be less desirable, and that's kind of how it prevents insects from chewing on the plant. Our next topic is the stoma and guard cells. Okay, stoma and guard cells, and these things work in tandem to help with water uptake, CO2 uptake, and oxygen being released. And you can see them, get a pin here, kind of right in here. And of course this whole diagram is done as well. We'll talk about what's going on there. Alright, so the stoma and guard cells, you've got your, no, that needs to be capitalized. And I know it's tedious, but I hate seeing that too done wrong, so CO2, same thing with the oxygen or the hydrogen here. And one more time, so this time the 2 goes at the top. But I don't have to tell you all that. I put on the wrong one. Look at me being crazy. So I'll put it here. Click on the eraser here and come up from above here. Just enough to catch that. There we go. All right, so let's talk about how this works. Because this has kind of a feedback system in place to ensure that when it does have a bunch of water, that it does what it can to help prevent water from being lost back into the atmosphere. So think about when the water, okay, comes in. So we're talking the water part here. Okay, when the H2O comes in, okay, it diffuses into the cells. Remember back in passive transport, active transport, way back in the plasma membrane, chapter 5, long time ago, we talked diffusion. And water molecules, oxygen molecules, or oxygen gas molecules are small enough that they can just diffuse into the cells. And so when that happens, these cells obviously can get enlarged. And these guard cells, if they're full of water, okay, they can enlarge enough that they expand. And when they expand, this area right in here decreases, and when it decreases, that helps to prevent water molecules from leaving, okay, through transpiration, which is another topic that we're going to get into later on. And you can kind of see that in this diagram right here. Here's one that's open, and then as it fills with water, it kind of just flattens, as you can see here, enlarges, gets plump, and then therefore it covers up or reduces that stomata. And of course, it's something that some plants do if they're in a hot environment that they do during the day. They collect a bunch of water at night when it's cooler, and then during the day, as much as they can, try to close those things up to keep that water molecules from leaving. So that's the idea of dermal tissue. No, I don't know what I was thinking. So let's go. Yeah, we'll close this. Go back up here to edit. Okay, our next part, we'll go down one more just to get below that 2 there. We've got your epidermis. And of course, you know anything about A and P, that and how that relates to your skin. That's your upper part. If the A and P students were here, man, they could talk a bunch about the epidermis. They love it. Well, I don't know if they love it, but love them some epidermis. That top layer, but that is a no. I think I left out an H there. Yeah, parenchyma. Okay, so, and again, so referencing our chest, the idea of what the cuticle does, the idea of how the stoma and the guard cells work, the idea that that epidermis is single layer parenchyma cells. Those are all multiple choice potential questions. And then we're going to add photosynthesis. This is that. It would make sense that the cells on the outer layer would be the ones that would photosynthesize, because they're the ones most directly in have that direct relationship with the sun's rays, being on the edge of the plants. Okay, so that's the epidermis, and these are, non-woody plants. So your typical leaf bladed grass, your house plant that's all green, things that do not have any sort of wood fiber to them. It's epidermis layer. If they are a woody plant, like a tree, it's called periderm. Okay, and again, it's still parenchyma cells, but it's many layers. parenchyma cells. Okay, so another test question could be what's the difference between a paraderm and epidermis. Epidermis is single layer, paraderm is many layers of parenchyma cells. And of course these end up, and we'll see it when we look at the ground tissue, but these end up forming the bark of a woody plant. And so we're going to put woody plants here. Excuse me, bent down got the heater on a little bit, a little cool, but it's warming up now, and don't need it, so I'll turn it off. Hate to see a little sweat roll run across the forehead there. That would not be a strong teacher move right there. All right, so let's move this picture over just a bit to get away from being doubled up, and that's dermal tissue. Okay, our next topic, and we're going to slide this over just a bit, and we'll type in between here. So let's move this bad boy over a bit, give myself a little bit more room. Give me a little box here. So now we're talking vascular tissue. Vascular tissue. Now, for vascular tissue, we talked about the bones, but we also want to think blood vessels. Blood vessels. So, bone was our location reference, but if you could replace the bone with just a collection of blood vessels, and of course your blood vessels don't work this way, where they're just in one spot and they just run down the system and then branch out into veins. But that's kind of what happens in a plant central area, and then of course then it branches out into all the areas. So I guess in retrospect it is kind of more similar to that than I first originally referenced. But we're thinking transport system. Transport system. And you may be asking, well, what does it transport? And I would say, hey, that's a good question by you right there. It actually transports a couple of things. Okay, the water, as it gets it from the roots, okay, it travels up. Okay, and so that would be this arrow right here. Let's go pen here. That would be this arrow for the water. So we'll put a little H2O in here. Okay, and then down, this one over here, we're talking glucose. So we got a little C6, H12, O6, keeping that firm 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. That's your glucose, and it's got to move down. Okay, and we're going to talk about the how this does it when we get to transpiration. But think about the idea of the plant being able to move water up. And it's one thing to move it up through a blade of grass, but man, what about a 200-foot tree? Okay, a 50-foot tree, a 100-foot tree. I mean, that's a long ways. And the cool part is without a pump of any kind. Okay, so when we move our blood around, we got a little pump, a little boom, 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 that's creating that force that drives that movement of the blood through the blood vessels. But plants don't have nothing like that. So the question is, how? And again, that'd be a great question by you. And we will talk about that once we get to transpiration. Okay, so let's talk about who's doing this. Close this. And I shouldn't say who. What's doing this? A little edit. Okay, so when we're talking xylem, okay, they're moving the water. Water movement. And in phloem, sugar movement. Okay, so and you want to be thinking, okay, man, how am I going to remember that? Well, here's what we do at the high school. Xylem. Okay, think alphabet. Okay, STUVW X. So W X, and it's pronounced xylem, so it sounds like a Z. So TUVW X Y Z. Okay, those letter combinations, those letters in a row, that reminds you that the xylem moves water. Okay, so hopefully that helps. And in phloem, well, we're making sugars, photosynthesis. So P for photosynthesis, P for phloem. That should help you to be able to remember which is which. And of course, those are easy multiple choice questions. What does the xylem do? What's the phloem do? That kind of stuff. Or even like, hey, a plant's moving sugar. Which tube is it using? And you want to be thinking phloem. Hey, water's being moved up from the roots through what tubes? Xylem. Okay, xylem. TUVW XYZ, P for phloem, P for photosynthesis. So hopefully that helps you. And then we got two types. And then we'll talk about this diagram down below here. We got your dicots. Okay. There, and I'm going to put VB, vascular bundle. Okay, so like the collection of all that vascular tissue. So on your paper, if you do write VB, make sure you reference that that's the vascular bundle. Whether you draw an arrow up to vascular tissue or what, that's fine. But just some way that they are in a ring. And we'll look at a picture here in a second. Okay, and these are most flowering plants. Okay, monocots. Monocots, okay, their VB, vascular bundle, are scattered around. Okay, they're just scattered around. And again, we'll look at a picture of that here shortly. There should be one below that picture of the two vessels down there. And these are your grass-like plants. Those are your grass-like plants. Okay, so let's move this up just enough where we can still see that, but then we can talk about this stuff in here. So if you start xylem first, okay, we're talking it goes up, okay, and it's moving water, okay, moving water, and just a little bit about how, okay, we're talking capillary action. If you know anything about plumbing, okay, and you may not, but when the water comes to your house off the street, or if you have a city system or a sewer, not a sewer, but a pump, a well, I should say, the first set of pipes are a little bit wider. Okay, so you can move some water in there, but as it gets into your house or approaches your house, and then gets into your house, the diameter of the pipes decreases. Okay, so the space decreases, and it does that when it decreases like that. That increases the pressure, which keeps the water moving. It's that idea. That's the capillary action. You'll see that action when you go to Pete's or Casey's or wherever and you get your little drink, soda fountain, and you got your cup there, you got your straw, you got your lid, and then you put that in your car, and when it's fresh like that, the carbonation is really going crazy. And you can see that pop occasionally. That pop will come up the straw, and then the ooze kind of out over the top. That's the same idea with capillary action. the pressure is being built up. One, the CO2, not CO2, the carbonation is creating pressure, gases popping and everything, leaving, which makes it then flat, the pop flat, as my wife would say, which for her happens about 6 minutes. For me, mine never seems really to go flat. I don't know what the difference is. But it's the idea of that pressure, those gases, driving up that and so the change in diameter when it pops in the cup, okay, not in the straw, it's got a pretty wide area. But as it goes into the straw, that decreases that containment diameter and then therefore drives it to move upward, just like it would in a plant. Okay, but that's your xylem. There's also some adhesion and cohesion going on, and we'll save those terms for transpiration. Okay, but you can also see that there are no membranes. This is just like a long tube, so you can think straw, think PVC pipe when you think xylem. Phloem, the sugars, have these membranes. Okay, they're a little bit different. They're sectioned off with these membranes, and the sugars, okay, with gravity's help, of course, obviously. Okay, the sugars move through the phloem, through gravity, and they diffuse through the membranes, that kind of thing, and move throughout the plant wherever they need to go to help. Each cell is going to need some glucose for all the things that it needs to do, to provide the energy for all the things it needs to do. Let's close that. Let's see if something is down here. All right. No, we're clean there. So now we're to ground tissue, and we're almost done with the front page of notes and flip over to the back. But again, just to reference ground tissue, we got our epidermis, that's our skin. Okay, let's get our pen back up here. That's our skin, and the vascular was that the bone or collection of the tubes through the center. Excuse me, and then ground is all this other stuff here. And that we're thinking of as the muscle. It's the support, it's the structure aspect of the ground tissue. It really provides that strength that it needs. Okay, so closing that and sliding over. Okay, now we're going to talk plant anatomy. Okay, plant anatomy. And so we're gonna label this. This is kind of a three-parter because we're going to talk about the stems, the roots, as you can see, and then of course the leaves. And if we go plant features, okay, we're starting with the stems. No, let's just do it this way. Let's just all this, because most of this stuff is pretty self-explanatory. We'll start with nodes. Okay, nodes are attachment places for leaves. Now, some plants, the leaf is right on the stem. Others, it's away from the stem, and it's going to be away from the stem on the petiole. And we think branch. Well, excuse me, while I'm doing that. Petiole branch for leaves, so that's this section right in here. And of course in the internode, that's the space in between the nodes. Right, so get our green here. And so we talk about the petiole being this branch. That's this thing right here. And of course, leaves you should be familiar with. And then the internode, that's the space in between the nodes, as the name would imply. Okay, so that's the idea. Now there's some other things to talk about. So let's close this and click back on this and edit that. 3 types of cells. Okay, I'm going to put the 3 words first to emphasize that suffix there. Alright, so you can see that when we're talking plant cells, that chima is the ending suffix there. So, but your parenchyma cells, go back up here. We're talking photosynthesis. Okay, so again, we're fortunate that they use a letter P for the name as a reference to photosynthesis. So you think parenchyma cells, okay, you're thinking photosynthesis. And again, that's a great multiple choice question, as is all this information up here. Okay, great multiple choice questions. Photosynthesis, it also food storage. So we're making the sugars, but then we're also storing the sugars as well. When we say food for plant, that's what we're talking about. And of course, secretions. Whether it's that waxy cuticle, whether it's some other sort of thing that has a function within a plant, this is the area that we do that, the parenchyma cells. Okay, the collenchyma cells, this is your support. Okay, so think ground tissue. Excuse me, think ground tissue. And then your solerenchyma cells, that's your hard / support. So these are the woody plants. This is the bark. Okay, so we want to think bark. So now the question is, do all plants have solerenchyma cells? So that's an obvious no. If you're a blade of grass, you don't have solerenchyma cells because you're not going to be making bark. Okay, and they could be dead or alive. Okay, so just like we don't study this, but if we study the layers of the epidermis and the dermal tissue, there's a section of that where at the bottom, when the new cells are being made, okay, they're obviously alive, but as they work their way up to the outer edge of the epidermis, at some point in time they do die, and which is why they slough off so easily on the upper surface of the skin, because for one, you can't get resources to the edge like that. You don't want your blood vessels and all of your resources that close to the edge, because then they can be affected by external conditions, and you don't want that. So it's just like with a tree, the outer edges, that stuff's not alive. Therefore, you don't have to feed it. And so we're thinking woody plants here. All right, and with that, we get to flip the page and head on down to the roots. And actually, you know what? I need to, let's do this. I don't know why I didn't think about this. That needs to go over here because We got one over here. We need one over here for roots. Nope, I'll take that back. I do need to do one more thing here so we'll close that. Let's move this up. Come back in here. I flipped my page and I had another spot there and I went on the roots and I wasn't done here. Excuse me, there's a nose. Needed some attention. Alright, so now we all know that plants grow. Okay, so growth, this happens in two ways. We've got your primary, got your secondary. Okay, primary, we want to think length. Occurs at the tips. So if you want to think roots, at the very, very tip of it, okay, cellular division goes on, mitosis, you get more cells, and then it adds to that length. Okay, same thing with the branches. At the very end, where the new buds show up each year, that gets new cell division and adds to the length of the plant. Secondary, okay, so here we're thinking width. Okay, we're thinking width. So like a tree, when you count the rings of a tree, that's secondary growth. Okay. And that occurs in the stem. So it widens, makes it bigger around as far as the diameter and everything. So that's the two types of growth. And we're poking along here at 53 minutes almost, and we've got a couple things left, but we are fast approaching the end. So let's move back. Oh, and primary growth, secondary growth, those are certainly multiple choice questions worthy, as well as the three types of cells and what they do. So keep that in mind when you're reviewing. Okay, so now root system. Now we can put this up here. Root system. Okay, we're going to go through a kind of a little vocabulary terms. Actually, you know what? No, we're not doing that. We're going to bring this over to here. We'll do it over there. So we'll close that out. So now we're just going to talk about the two types. And then we'll document it once we get over there. We got a long list of these sections here to talk about. So let's just go with our pen here. So if we're thinking taproot, now if you've ever had to remove a shrub, okay, or a small tree, okay, it's a tough task. You cannot just grab onto that thing and pull it out of the ground. It is not going to work that way. And there's plenty of funny YouTube videos, I'm sure, the people that have hooked their truck bumper up to a tree thinking, I'm going to just yank that thing out. And then they pull away, and of course, in the truck bumper is now laying, still attached to the tree, but now laying on the ground. Trees will win that battle because of the taproots. So, but surely you know enough about roots to know that taproots, they're long, thick things that are growing downward, searching for that water. Let's see, can you hear Avery barking? Yeah, there must have been oh, there was one. Must have been like something dangerous out there, like a venomous squirrel or the worst, her worst barks are when little girls go by on bikes, and I'm thinking, Avery, that's sad. Because that 5-year-old little girl on her tricycle or the bikes with the training wheels, that is not a threat at all. But yeah, she goes ballistic. So you got to go out there and just say, hey, shut it up. And Then she calms down. The threat goes away once they get past the gate. If they're in between the gate post, going along the front of the gate, boy, it's do not come in here mode real fast. But anyway, taproots. Now, and if you ever try to remove one of these shrubs, that you know that you physically have to go around and find each of them. I mean, if you're really going to muscle them out with some heavy equipment, then that's not the case. But if you're just gardening in your own garden, and your wife says, "Hey, I want to move that. I want to change out that shrub right there and get something different." For one, you're just obligated to mow at that point in time, and then secondly, you ask, "Well, who's doing that?" Even though you know the answer, and yeah, you gotta physically find each of those taproots and cut them before you're going to be able to get that shrub out. And the first 20 are a challenge. After that, when you can kind of start to roll the shrub over and get more underneath, then it goes by pretty quick. But yeah, that's quite a task, and done way too many of those over the years. But that's why they're in there so strong. Okay, that's why when a tornado comes through and houses get knocked down, but trees are still standing or bushes are still standing, because those roots are so strong and they got such a good grip on the ground in there. They're anchored so well that even though the tops of the trees may be broken off, okay, the tree itself is still in the ground, and that's a pretty strong grip. And you can watch hurricane videos when houses and cars are being pushed around by the strong winds, but the trees, I mean, they're being, the branches and leaves and the top half may be heavily damaged, but for the most part, a lot of times the tree is still in the ground. It may break off at some point in time, but the tree itself is still in the ground. That's how strong those taproots can be. And in the fiber roots, if you've ever tried to landscape with grass, and what's that word called? I don't know. There's a word for when you lay sod. Yeah, when you work with sod and stuff, and you're trying to cut some sod or get some grass out, that's a challenge. I mean, those fibrous roots they're thin and small and short, and you think easy peasy. No, not at all. They really grab on. It's like 1,000 little hands grabbing onto the soil and dirt, and you got to really work to pull those up. I mean, to just yank out some grass from the ground, that's not easy to do. You got to really get in there and cut them first, and then you can pick them up and replace it, or just relocate them or whatever you're doing there. But they really got a strong hold on the ground. All right, so now we can close this out, and we can come over here and go through this bad boy diagram. And we'll come back to edit in here. Root system. So we talked about the taproot. Okay, long, thick, and then, growing downward. In search of water. And of course, then the fibers. Oh, that's not the right one. Fibrous roots. Okay, thin, net-like. Spread out, and they intertwine. Super strong grip on what's going on there. Okay, and within a root we have other sections. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. But the root cap. Okay, think football helmet. So if you can visualize that root cap, football helmet. Okay, you could also go, Magneto helmet. If you want to go sci-fi stuff, you could think of just something Or what's that mutant that that just kind of runs through everything. It's a big part of the fourth. And whatever it is, I'm sure you can visualizing, just powering through. But it's a protection. As the root grows. And you may be thinking, well, what's it need protection for? Hey, the ground can be a rough neighborhood. Okay, you got little pieces of rock or just rocks in general. There could be other things in there, and the friction from just growing along the ground. It just needs to be protected, and that is the root cap's job. Working our way up. Even though we're going down the list, we'll work our way up the plant there. The apical meristem. Anytime you see meristem, you're thinking growth. So in this case, if we're making the root longer, we're talking primary growth, apical meristem, again root tip, where growth occurs. So we're thinking mitosis. Okay, a bunch of mitosis there to drive that length on the root. Okay, our next term, zone of elongation. Okay, this is pretty important. So again, we're thinking mitosis. Because the length comes from making additional cells. Okay, so it makes more cells, so therefore it drives that length and keeps it growing. Now the other, I guess I don't need that comma. The other cool zone zone of maturation. Now, if you know anything about differentiation in cells, okay, if you think about a new offspring, okay, the fetus, okay, at some point in time, originally, it's just the one cell. I mean, the sperm and the egg came together, and now it's back to being a diploid cell with all of the chromosomes needed for that organism, whatever it may be. For us, it'd be 46. For others, it's different numbers. But you just got the one cell. Then that one cell divides to make 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16, 16 into 32, and so on and on and on and on until you keep going until you get about 1 million of them. But it's somewhere along the way in a human offspring, all those cells are the same. Okay, but they can't stay the same. They've got to become different things. They got to become heart cells and brain cells and skin cells and muscle cells and bone cells and nervous cells. So at some point in time, they convert from being what they are to what they become. Okay, and that occurs in plants as well, and that's a zone of maturation where the cells convert to the type going to become. And that may be parenchyma cells, sclerenchyma cells, collenchyma cells, whatever it may be. They convert to those in the zone of maturation. Then we got root hairs. And they are just like the name implied. You got your long root. These are little hairs. It's still woody, so it's not like hair like we have hair. It's still woody, but they're little extensions out, and they just help with uptake of water. And our last one, our vascular cylinder. Okay, that's that VB bundle, vascular bundle, as we've already talked about. Okay, in the middle, you can see that right here. I'm done with that, so we can close that out. And so we got our vascular symbol here, and that's all this stuff here in the middle. The xylem and phloem. And of course, we get our zone of maturation, our zone of elongation, and our root cap down here. Our apical meristem area where the cells grow to drive that length. And then sort of elongation again. So we're making more cells here to make it go down in length. And of course, we got our root hairs here. And that's all the things that we have talked about. Hey, we're down to three topics. Leaves, transpiration, and tropisms. And then we are done. And so let's close this out here. So we're probably looking right around 15, so 75 minutes, maybe 80 minutes, we'll see. So in retrospect, it could have been 240s, but hey, we're going to knock it out. Because hey, you don't have to watch it all at one time. Click that pause button, click that stop button, and come back in a week's time, 10 minutes a day, and you'll be done. Okay, so if we look at a leaf diagram, okay, so the petiole we've talked about, but that's just the stalk. Okay, and obviously the tip is pretty self-explanatory. But let's talk midrib. Okay, that's your VB bundle. That's your vascular bundle. That's the xylem. That's the phloem. Okay, and the same thing with the veins. Okay, that's those things moving out or branching out into the rest of the leaf so they can spread out, spread the waters out, spread the sugars out. Okay, now your lamina, that's the flat surface. That's your flat surface right there. And in your margin, circle that. And let me come way out here. That's the edge. And again, like with most of this stuff, that's a multiple choice question right there. Okay, which of these choices is the lamina? Or, hey, the leaf has a flat surface. Which of these is the correct term for that? Okay, something like that. Okay, another way that people who study plants classify them is by their leaf arrangement. Okay. Okay, if you've got a simple leaf, okay, that is the leaf is right off the plant. Okay, so like these would be simple leaves down here. Okay, then you got your compound. So on a simple, you got the one petiole and then one leaf. One petiole, one leaf. So you got a 1-to-1. That's supposed to be a. Let's try that again. One-to-one ratio. One petiole. One petiole. One leaf. On a compound, we've got the one petiole. I'm just going to put pet here. But then you can see you've got an arrangement of leaves. And these can be symmetrical or they can be opposite. These are symmetrical. They're going straight across. Opposite would be if I've got this, then I've got a leaf here. No, not opposite. Alternate. I'm sorry. alternate. And then the leaf over here, and the leaf over here, and the leaf over here. Alternate, not opposite. Opposite would be the same as symmetrical. Should have caught that. Okay, then if a double compound leaf, okay, now you've got a petiole, and then you got another petiole coming off of that, which has leaves on it as well. And again, these are typically symmetrical, and these are your walnut trees. Okay, your walnut trees have this kind of stuff right here. One way you can find those pretty easy, just when you see just a bunch of leaves. Okay, that's your hickory, not hickory, your walnut trees. But they've got a petiole, then they got another stem coming off, then the leaves, double compound. So that's your three types of classification of leaf structure. Okay, so I'm going to close this. So now we're down to two topics. Transpiration, which is a huge topic to talk about. Lots going on there. And then, of course, the tropisms after that. So transpiration. Hey, if you're thinking cool factors of plants, this is it right here. It's the idea, and this is a question that's just in the PowerPoint, but I can't arrange the picture. So just you're ignoring that right there. It won't work with that question. But it's the idea that plants being able to take water from the ground and moving it up through the plant, and the sugars down through the plant. That's transpiration. Okay, it's all based on vacuum. Okay, if you want to think vacuum, because the question is obviously, how in the world would a tree that's 200, 300, 400 feet tall get water, okay, from the ground up to the crown of the leaves? I mean, it's an amazing process, and pretty spectacular. But it's the idea that the plants breathe. I mean, you don't think of it that way, but they release oxygen. Okay, they take in materials. So they've got that inhale, exhale aspect going on, and of course, then also with the uptake from the ground. All that is transpiration. You know, and again, no pump. So how? Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So here's a word we want to focus on: adhesion, cohesion. Is capillary action in here? No, but we will mention it. So adhesion, think of it as different. And when I say different, we're talking about it's different molecules bonding together, okay, or attaching themselves together in order to help drive and transport materials up. Cohesion is the same. Same molecules bonding. So you think about this water, okay, that it's in the ground, as it's being moved upward to the plant, the water-to-water attachments, that's cohesion. Okay, but when the water attaches to maybe some salts or some other elements or ions or molecules that are needed to go up through the plant, that's adhesion. Okay, that's adhesion. And you can see this idea of clinging to the cell walls. Okay, because the cell walls are going to have some kind of structure. Okay, and so if we got polar stuff going on, we can attach to that as kind of an anchor, and then we just kind of walk our way up through the plant. So you can see here is soil, water being dragged in, diffusion. Okay, gets into this xylem tube, and of course that works its way up. All these xylem tubes here working their way up through the top. So capillary action, adhesion. Capillary action was the change in diameter of the tubes to create pressure and to drive that up. And adhesion, different molecules bonding together to kind of help carry them upwards. Cohesion, the same molecule, it's typically water, bonding together. And those are all test worthy multiple choice questions. So on to our last topic, Yahoo, and we're right at 75 minutes there. So let's get done with this one. 80 minutes, 80-ish, probably a little bit plus now. But we're talking tropisms. Okay, I'm just going to put this all the way over here. Now, tropism is, let's go back, is just a reaction to stimulus. I don't need that A there, I don't think. Don't need an E there. Yeah, stimulus. Okay, a reaction to stimulus. And it can be, the four we're going to focus on is sunlight, okay, touch, gravity, and water. Okay, so if drag my forehand or forearm across the mouse and zoom this in, that was not a strong teacher move. I need to go up one more. There we go. Okay, so phototropism is sunlight. Okay, and we all understand that plants grow towards the sunlight. And so you can, like in tall trees, you can see that stretching out and reaching up for the plant, and all plants kind of grow towards, they grow more upright than out. They go towards the sunlight, reaching out for those great photosynthesis rays. Okay, and you can even, I'm sure you can see a YouTube video of this, time-lapse video, I'm hoping, to where if you put a plant in a closet, which is a single light source on one side of the closet, and every so hours, maybe it's even daily, I don't know, turn that pot a little bit, then that plant will reorientate itself to grow towards the sunlight. And if you keep turning it, you could actually make the plant grow upward in kind of a spiral setting, just to showcase phototropism. Okay, but gravitropism is a reference to gravity. And what do you be thinking? What do you mean? Okay, the plants themselves, they grow downward. You don't want your plants growing upward. They've got to respond to growing downward, so they respond to gravity. And there's a good picture here. Here's a positive gravitropism, where they're even though you turn it in different ways, but the plant grows downward, the roots grow downward, no matter how you turn it. Okay, and this is the plant that's got negative. Okay, it isn't growing down towards this root here coming out. Okay, it isn't growing down. Okay, so positive means it has it, negative means it doesn't have it. Two more. Thigma. This is touch. If you know anything about clinging plants or vining plants, my wife loves to plant those. She loves doing the pumpkins in the fall and the various flowers that have these, that grow in this pattern, because she likes to put up, she's got this huge, it's a fence, it's basically fencing, but it's in a garden, and then they grow up and over the top and back down and all around. Cucumbers do this as she plants. Sunflowers, no, not sunflowers, but certainly the pumpkins and the different flowers. But anyway, they literally put out little tendrils and grab on, or I should say reach out, and when they touch something, they wrap around it. Okay, thigmotropism. And again, these four certainly multiple choice worthy. The last one, hydrotropism. This obviously is water. It's not a reference to Hydra in the Marvel movies, but water. So they grow towards, the roots grow towards water. They seek it out. They sense it. Okay, they grow towards water. Hey, well, there you go. Okay, 80 minutes. I know that's long. Break it up into small chunks, please, please, please. But that's plants. Okay, and it's our next to last one. We only got to make one more of these. I'm gonna be sad. I love doing this. I love doing this. And of course, next semester when I get a new set of bio students, the videos will be made. And so I will go back, and the ones prior to me having my webcam, I will go back and reshoot those and get my party face in there, yeah, my party mouth and all that good stuff. Hey, but again, thank you for tuning us in, for letting me be a part of your educational journey. Appreciate you guys, love you guys, and hey, hopefully everything's going well. I know we mentioned it Thursday at the test, but we've kind of had a little spring in our Crowder COVID cases. Oh, I didn't even mention at the beginning. This is a video where it's just you guys. It's just bio Crowder people. Okay, not a huge crowd, but hey, a great crowd though. So again, but hope you're safe. Hope you're well. Your family's well, and that everything is going well with you, and that you're in a good spot. Take care of yourself, man. We're almost at the end. But take care of yourself, and with that, we will say goodbye.